Hello viewers, welcome to Perspectives Today on Nimra TV. I am Maryam Olugbode. Maiduguri, the heart of Nigeria's northeast, is once again in the global spotlight. A high-level delegation of the United Nations has arrived, pledging support for communities ravaged by over a decade of insurgency. The mission is clear: assess humanitarian need, mobilize international aid, and provide sustainable support. But here is the real question: will this visit lead to real changes? Or is it just another diplomatic tour filled with empty promises? Also, a terrifying mid-air collision near Washington, D.C. has left authorities scrambling for answers. An American Airlines commercial jet and a U.S. military Black Hawk helicopter collided in the skies. The incident has raised serious questions about air traffic safety, military coordination, and how such a catastrophe could happen near the capital of the United States. How did this happen? What happens next? All of this in more coming, but first the news headlines. United Nations mission to Maiduguri seeks support for communities ravaged by insurgency. Edo Tribunal. PDP, APC lawyers clash over alleged threats to witnesses. Rwanda's stealth occupation of Eastern Congo, a brewing crisis in Africa. A mid-year disaster. American airline plane and Black Hawk helicopter collide near Washington, D.C. Migrant workers in Canada exposed to shocking abuse and discrimination since amnesty. Chaos at Gaza hosted release. Israeli leaders condemn unruly scenes. Now to the news in details. UN mission in Maiduguri, a lifeline or another forgotten promise. To understand the significance of this visit, we must first acknowledge the scale of the devastation. For more than a decade, Boko Haram and its offshoots have turned northeastern Nigeria into a war zone. Villages have been burned, livelihoods destroyed, and millions displaced. Maiduguri, once a thriving hub, is now home to refugee camps filled with families who have lost everything. The number paints a grim picture. Over 2 million people are internally displaced. According to the UN, thousands have been killed, and many more live under the constant threat of violence. Schools have been shut down, businesses have collapsed, and healthcare services are barely functioning. The insurgency has not just been about bullets and bombs. It has crippled the region's economy. Farmers can't access their land due to fear of attacks. Traders struggle to move goods across dangerous roads. The result: widespread poverty, malnutrition, and an education crisis. The people of Maiduguri don't just need humanitarian aid. They need a long-term strategy to rebuild their lives. The UN delegation is meeting with government officials, humanitarian agencies, and local leaders. Their agenda includes increasing food aid, improving security, and investing in long-term development. They are talking about rebuilding infrastructure, strengthening education programs, and supporting the radicalization efforts. On paper, it sounds promising, but there is skepticism on the ground. This is not the first time international organizations have pledged support. Billions of dollars have already been funneled into Nigeria for counter-insurgency and relief efforts. Yet, corruption and inefficiency have often derailed progress. One of the biggest concerns is aid diversion. In the past, reports have emerged of food supplies meant for displaced persons being siphoned off. Security personnel and local officials have been accused of profiting from the crisis. The UN will have to ensure that aid actually reaches those who need it most. Can peace be achieved? Another major issue is security. While the Nigerian army has made gains, Boko Haram and its splinter group remain active. Attacks on villages, suicide bombings, and kidnappings continue. Just last month, insurgents stormed a rural community near Maiduguri, killing civilians and looting homes. The UN's approach includes the radicalization programs for former insurgents, but this strategy has sparked controversy. Many victims of Boko Haram find it difficult to accept that the same people who terrorized them are now being rehabilitated. There are fears that some of these rehabilitated fighters may return to violence. A long-term peace plan must involve community engagement. One must note, locals need to feel safe. They need job opportunities. Young people must be given alternatives to extremism. Without this, military victories will be short-lived and the cycle of violence will continue. This visit is a test, not just for the UN, but for Nigeria's government as well. Will they take this opportunity to create lasting change? Or will this be another international mission that fades into history? For the people of Maiduguri, hope is running thin. They have had promises before. They have seen foreign delegations come and go. They are waiting for action. The UN's visit must translate into real policies, real investment, and real change. Because if it doesn't, Maiduguri will remain what it has been for years, a forgotten battlefield, where people struggle to survive while the world watches from a distance. Well, this is not just a humanitarian crisis. It is a fight for survival, and the world cannot afford to look away. Moving on. Edo Tribunal. PDP, APC lawyers clash over alleged threats to witnesses. Political drama is unfolding in Edo State, and it is getting messy, and very messy. The election tribunal has turned into a battleground, with lawyers from the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and the All Progressive Congress, APC, locked in a heated war of words. The reason? Allegations of witness intimidation. Now let's break it down. The APC, still contesting its loss in the last governorship election, claims that its witnesses have been threatened and harassed. They say their key testimonies have been silenced through fear tactics. A serious allegation, a case that could determine the political future of Edo State. But the PDP is not having any of it. Their legal team calls this accusation a distraction, an attempt to derail the tribunal's proceeding. According to them, the APC is simply playing the victim to cover up a weak case. What is the legal crossfire? The courtroom saw intense exchange. APC lawyers insisted that their witnesses were too afraid to testify, raising concerns about the fairness of the process. They demanded protection and called for a full investigation into the alleged threat. PDP's legal team fired back, dismissing the claims as baseless and politically motivated. They argued that the APC was trying to delay the inevitable, a ruling that would uphold the PDP's victory. Meanwhile, the tribunal judges have warned both sides to focus on the case, not personal attacks. And that is obvious. They insist that witness intimidation is a serious offense, but so is making false allegations to manipulate proceedings. What is at stake? At the heart of this dispute is the legitimacy of Edo's governorship election. The APC believes there were irregularities, while the PDP maintained that the election was free and fair. The tribunal's ruling could have major political consequences, setting the tone for the state political landscape ahead of the next election cycle. For now, The tribunal continues, but the tension is far from over. Will the allegation of witness intimidation hold up under scrutiny? Or is this just another chapter in Nigeria's never-ending political battles? One thing is clear. This is not just about legal argument. It's a fight for power, and in Nigerian politics, that fight is never clean. In Africa, Rwanda's third occupation of Eastern Congo. A storm is brewing in Central Africa. The Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, has accused Rwanda of illegally occupying its eastern territories. The statement made by the DRC's Foreign Minister, Therese Kayikwamba is a stark warning about the escalating tensions in the region. The accusation is not new, but the stakes are now higher than ever. The M23 rebel group, which has long been linked to Kigali, has tightened its grip on the eastern DRC. Waina's statement is more than just diplomatic rhetoric. It is a call for action. The DRC is now openly challenging Rwanda on the international stage, alleging that President Paul Kagame's government is fueling instability by supporting armed groups in Congolese territory. At the center of the storm is the M23, a Tutsi-led armed group that has been wreaking havoc in eastern Congo. The DRC government and UN experts say that M23 operates as a proxy force for Rwanda. Despite repeated denials from Kigali, the evidence is hard to ignore. The rebels, better armed and more organized than the Congolese army, have taken control of strategic locations, including key roads and border towns. The latest crisis erupted when M23 forces advanced on Goma, the economic heart of eastern DRC. The city, which has a population of over 1 million, is now on the brink of falling into rebel hands. Videos from the region show displaced civilians, smoldering buildings, and Congolese soldiers struggling to hold their ground. What is the history of these tensions? The DRC and Rwanda have a long history of conflict. Rwanda's involvement in its larger neighbors' affairs date back to the 1994 Rwandan genocide. Following the mass killings, armed groups fled into eastern Congo, setting off a chain reaction of violence that continues to this day. Rwanda has used the presence of these groups, particularly the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, FDLR, a ET military with ties to the 1994 genocide, as justification for its military incursions into Congolese territory. But Congo sees it differently. According to King Sasha, Rwanda's actions are not about security, but about economic gain. Eastern Congo is rich in minerals, including gold, diamonds, and cotton, a crucial component in electronics. When and other Congolese officials argue that Rwanda's backing of M23 is a cover for looting these valuable resources. A shift in tone? For years, Rwanda has enjoyed a positive international reputation. Under Kagame, the country has been seen as a model of stability and economic progress. But recent developments are forcing the world to take a harder look, a better look. And the European Union have all expressed concern over Rwanda's role in the crisis. In a notable shift, France is now pushing for a United Nations Security Council resolution that explicitly names Rwanda as the backer of M23. If passed, this could lead to economic and diplomatic consequences for Kagame's government. The African Union and the East African Community have attempted to mediate, but so far, their efforts have been fruitless. Peace talks are stalled, and the fighting continues. Meanwhile, the humanitarian situation is worsening. As always, civilians are paying the highest price. The UN estimates that over 7 million people have been displaced by violence in eastern DRC, one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world. Refugee camps are overflowing, and food shortages are becoming critical. Report from Goma describes scenes of horror. Bodies have been discovered in the streets. Hospitals are overwhelmed, and entire villages have been burned to the ground. The Congolese army, despite receiving support from regional allies, is struggling to contain the M23 offensive. What comes next? With tensions at an all-time high, the possibility of a full-scale war between Rwanda and the DRC is real. Very, very real. Kinshasa has already cut diplomatic ties with Kigali and is calling for heavy sanctions against Rwanda. But will the international community respond with more than just words? For now, Rwanda continues to deny its involvement, while M23 fighters remain firmly entrenched in Congolese territory. The world is watching. But will it act before it's too late? Mid-air disaster. American Airlines plane and Black Hawk helicopter collide near Washington, D.C. A terrifying mid-air collision near Washington, D.C. has left authorities scrambling for answers. An American Airlines commercial jet and a U.S. military Black Hawk helicopter collided in the skies, sending shockwaves across the nation. The incident has raised serious questions about air traffic safety, military coordination, and how such a catastrophe could happen near the capital of the United States, the Washington, D.C. The collision happened in restricted airspace, a zone where air traffic is tightly monitored. The American Airlines jet, a routine commercial flight carrying passengers, was on its usual path when it came into contact with a UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter, reportedly on a military exercise. The result: a deadly mix of metal and fire in the sky. Authorities have confirmed that the helicopter went down almost immediately, crashing into an open field. As for the American Airlines jet, it was forced to make an emergency landing. There are unconfirmed reports of casualties, but officials are yet to provide full details. What went wrong? Was this a failure in air traffic control, pilot error, or a more serious security lapse? How did this happen? Washington, D.C. is one of the most protected airspace in the world. It has layers of security, restricted zones, and military oversight. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, and the Pentagon are now facing 5 questions. Did air traffic controllers fail to spot the Black Hawk's trajectory? Was there a miscommunication between military and civilian aviation? Or was this a freak accident caused by unpredictable conditions? Initial reports suggest that the Black Hawk was conducting a routine military drill, but did not anticipate the flight path of the commercial jet. Some experts are pointing fingers at coordination lapses between civilian and military aviation authorities. Passengers on the American Airlines flight described a sudden jolt, a deafening noise, and a moment of pure panic. Some reported seeing flames from the right side of the aircraft before the pilots made a rapid descent. The Black Hawk, according to witnesses on the ground, spun out of control before crashing. One local resident who saw the incident unfold said, "It was like something out of a movie. The helicopter just dropped. The plane was struggling to stay up. It's a miracle the plane even landed." What happens next? The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, and the FAA have launched an immediate investigation. Military officials are also involved, treating this as a high-priority security breach. Was the helicopter properly cleared for its flight? Did the airline receive the right information? Washington, D.C. is now on high alert. Airspace security is under scrutiny, and officials will have to explain how a military helicopter and a passenger plane ended up on a collision course. This incident is more than just a tragic accident. It is a warning. In an era of advanced technology and heightened security, how did 2 aircraft collide in one of the most controlled airspaces in the world? Until answers emerge, one thing is clear: vivid. Somebody dropped the ball, and lives were lost because of it. In Canada, migrant workers face abuse and discrimination, says Amnesty. Canada, a country known for its progressive values and human rights record. But behind this image lies a dark reality. Migrant workers, the backbone of industries like agriculture, construction, and caregiving, are facing shocking levels of abuse, discrimination, and exploitation. This isn't speculation. It is coming straight from Amnesty International, which has just released a damning report on the mistreatment of foreign workers in Canada. A system built on exploitation? Amnesty's report paints a disturbing picture, one where migrant workers are treated as disposable labor, denied basic rights, and left vulnerable to exploitation. The accusations are severe. Wage theft. Workers report being underpaid or not paid at all. Some have been forced to work extra hours without compensation. Also, horrific living conditions. Many are crammed into overcrowded housing with poor sanitation and no heating, a nightmare in Canada's harsh winters. No access to healthcare. Despite contributing to the economy, many migrants are left without proper medical care even when injured on the job. The most shocking is the fear of retaliation. Workers who speak up risk deportation. A scary nightmare. Their legal status is tied to their employers, meaning a single complaint could cost them their jobs and their right to stay in Canada. One Mexican farm worker described it as modern-day slavery. Another Filipino caregiver said she was forced to work 14-hour shifts with no break and threatened with deportation when she asked for time off. The government promises versus reality. Canada has long prided itself on being a leader in human rights, but this report exposes a glaring contradiction. The government has promised labor protections, yet the system continues to fail those who are most vulnerable. Migrant workers come to Canada under programs that promise fair wages and safe conditions. But in reality, many find themselves trapped in abusive workplaces with no way out. Amnesty has called for urgent reforms, including stronger labor laws to protect workers from exploitation, permanent residency pathways so that workers are not tied to a single employer, better enforcement, because without accountability, abuse will continue. Who is benefiting from the system? Canadian industries. Yes, they rely heavily on migrant labor, especially in farming, caregiving, and hospitality. But while businesses profit from cheap labor workers, the workers bear the cost through exploitation, discrimination, and a system that keeps them silent, even when they are abused. And here is the biggest irony. Canada needs migrant workers. The country is facing a labor shortage, yet it continues to treat foreign workers as second-class citizens. Amnesty's report has sparked outrage, but will it lead to action? That remains to be seen. The government will have to answer some tough questions. Why are workers being treated that way? Who is benefiting from the exploitation? And why is a country that preaches human rights allowing this to happen on its own soil? The world sees Canada as a beacon of hope, a beacon of fairness and equality. But if this report is anything to go by, that image the world sees Canada as a beacon of fairness and equality. But if this report is anything to go by, that image is starting to crack. The question now is, will Canada fix this? Or will it continue to turn a blind eye? Chaos at Gaza hostage release. Israeli leaders condemn unruly scenes. The long-awaited hostage release in Gaza was supposed to be a moment of relief, a sign of progress in a brutal conflict. Instead, it turned into a scene of chaos, confusion, and political outrage. Israeli leaders are now condemning the disorder, calling it an embarrassment and demanding answers. What happened? Report from the ground described chaotic, uncoordinated scenes as hostages were being released. Families waiting for their loved ones were caught in a crowd surge. Security forces struggled to maintain control. Emotions ran high. Tears, anger, relief, all mixing into one volatile moment. Some reports suggest that militant groups delayed or interfered with the process, adding to the confusion. Others say the handover lacked proper coordination between mediators, usually officials, and the mass. Whatever the cause, the result was a diplomatic and humanitarian mess. Usually officials are furious. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the scenes unacceptable, vowing to review the handling of future releases. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant slammed what he called reckless mismanagement, whether the such incident could jeopardize future negotiations. Opposition leaders went further, accusing the government of failing its citizens by allowing such disorder. This was a movement of hope turned into chaos, said one senior opposition figure. Israelis deserve better. The international community is also watching. The US, Egypt, and Qatar, all involved in mediation, have reportedly raised concerns about the lack of coordination. A senior US official told reporters that such missteps risk undermining delicate negotiations. Human rights groups, meanwhile, are calling for better transparency in the process, saying hostages and their families deserve dignity and safety during such critical moments. What happens next? With tension already at a boiling point, this hostage release was supposed to be a rare moment of unity. Instead, it has exposed deep fractures in Israeli politics, in diplomatic effort, and in the fragile choose negotiations. Now the question is, will Israel and Hamas learn from this chaos? Or will the next hostage release be just as disorderly or worse? Chaotic. Before I go, the news headlines. UN mission in my degree, a lifeline or another forgotten promise. Edo Tribunal, PDP, APC lawyers clash over alleged threat to witnesses. Rwanda's third occupation of Eastern Congo, a brewing crisis in Africa. Mid-air disaster. American Airlines plane and Black Hawk helicopter collide near Washington, D.C. Migrant worker in Canada exposed to shocking abuse and discrimination, says Amnesty. Also, chaos at Gaza hostage release. Israeli leaders condemn unruly scenes. Thank you for staying tuned. Once again, I am Maryam Olugbode.